For decades, Europe was the model the world envied. Universal healthcare, free education, strong labor protections, a currency that rivaled the dollar, a union of nations that promised peace and prosperity after centuries of war. From Paris to Berlin, from Stockholm to Rome, European cities represented civilization at its peak, safe, clean, cultured, and rich. But that version of Europe is dying. And the collapse isn't happening because of some external shock or unexpected crisis. Europe is destroying itself through policy choices so catastrophic, so economically suicidal, that future historians will study them as a case study in how advanced civilizations choose decline. The European economy isn't stumbling, it's hemorrhaging. And the 5 wounds bleeding it dry are so deep, so structural, that no amount of central bank intervention or political speeches can stop it. This is the wealth records, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. To understand how Europe reached this point, you need to understand what made it powerful in the first place. After World War II, Europe was in ruins. Cities were rubble, economies were shattered, millions were dead. But over the next 50 years, Europe rebuilt itself into an economic powerhouse. The Marshall Plan injected American capital. The European coal and steel community, the precursor to the EU, created integrated markets. West Germany became an industrial giant. France invested in nuclear energy and aerospace. Britain remained a global financial center, and Scandinavian countries built wealthy welfare states funded by high taxes and efficient governance. By the year 2000, the European Union had a combined GDP rivaling the United States. The euro, launched in 1999, was hailed as a historic achievement, a single currency for a unified continent. The dream was clear. Europe would be a superpower, not through military strength, but through economic integration and soft power. For a while it worked, but beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Cracks that would become the 5 wounds now killing the European economy. Wound number 1, the energy suicide. Europe's first fatal mistake was sacrificing energy security on the altar of ideology. For years, European leaders championed green energy transitions, promising a future powered by wind and solar. It sounded noble, it sounded progressive. But it ignored a brutal economic reality. Renewable energy cannot yet replace fossil fuels at the scale modern economies require. Not reliably, not affordably, and not without backup systems that Europe refused to build. Germany led the charge. In 2011, after the Fukushima disaster in Japan, Germany decided to shut down its nuclear power plants. Nuclear energy, one of the cleanest and most reliable sources of power, was abandoned. Instead, Germany doubled down on wind and solar, which are intermittent and weather-dependent. And to fill the gap when the sun didn't shine and the wind didn't blow, Germany became dependent on Russian natural gas. By 2021, over 55% of Germany's natural gas came from Russia. Europe as a whole relied on Russia for about 40% of its gas supplies. This was insanity. European leaders built their entire energy infrastructure on the assumption that Russia, a geopolitical rival with a history of using energy as a weapon, would always be a reliable partner. They were wrong. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Europe faced a choice: support Ukraine and cut off Russian energy, or keep the gas flowing and betray their principles. They chose the former, noble perhaps, but economically devastating. Russian gas supplies were cut, energy prices exploded. German factories, which had run on cheap Russian gas for decades, suddenly faced energy costs 5 to 10 times higher than competitors in the United States or Asia. Entire industries became uneconomical overnight. BASF, one of the world's largest chemical companies and a pillar of German manufacturing, began shutting down plants and relocating production to China and the United States. Why? Because energy in Germany cost more than the entire value of the products they were making. Steel, cement, chemicals, glass, fertilizers. Every energy-intensive industry in Europe is now uncompetitive. Meanwhile, the United States, with its shale gas revolution, enjoys energy prices a fraction of Europe's. Asian countries import liquefied natural gas at cheaper rates. And Europe? Europe is paying the highest energy costs in the developed world, while its politicians lecture the rest of the planet about climate change. The result is predictable. European industry is dying. Factories are closing. Investment is fleeing. And the jobs that made Europe's middle class prosperous are disappearing. This isn't a temporary shock. This is a structural collapse. And it was entirely self-inflicted. Wound number 2, the demographic death spiral. Europe is old and getting older. Across the continent, birth rates have collapsed. In Italy, the fertility rate is 1.24 children per woman. In Spain, 1.19. In Germany, 1.53. To maintain a stable population, you need a fertility rate of 2.1. Europe is nowhere close. The population is shrinking. And worse, it's aging rapidly. By 2050, over 30% of Europeans will be over the age of 65. In some countries, like Italy and Greece, that number will exceed 35%. This creates an economic nightmare. Fewer workers means less economic output. Fewer consumers means less demand. And an aging population means exploding costs for pensions, healthcare, and social services. European welfare states were designed in an era when populations were young and growing. Workers paid into pension systems, and retirees drew from them. But the ratio made sense because there were 5 or 6 workers for every retiree. Now, that ratio is collapsing. In Italy, there are fewer than 2 workers per retiree, and the trend is worsening. Pension systems across Europe are going bankrupt. France tried to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64, a mild reform by any standard, and the country exploded into riots. Italy's public pension spending already consumes over 15% of GDP, the highest in Europe. Spain, Portugal, and Greece face similar burdens. And there's no fix. You can't force people to have more children. Immigration could theoretically help, but Europe's immigration policies are politically toxic and economically inefficient. Immigrants who arrive often lack the skills European economies need, and integrating them has proven far more difficult than politicians promised. The result is stagnation. Europe's labor force is shrinking, productivity is stagnant, and governments are drowning in the costs of supporting an aging population while tax revenues decline. Japan offers a preview of Europe's future. Japan's population has been shrinking since 2010. Its economy has stagnated for 30 years. Despite low unemployment and high literacy, Japan cannot grow because it doesn't have enough workers or consumers. Europe is now following the same path, but with a critical difference. Japan entered its demographic decline as a wealthy, cohesive, high-trust society. Europe is entering its decline fractured, indebted, and politically unstable. The demographic wound is bleeding Europe dry, and there is no policy fix that can reverse it. Wound number 3, the manufacturing exodus. For over a century, Europe was a manufacturing powerhouse. German cars, French aerospace, Italian luxury goods, Swiss precision instruments. European manufacturing was synonymous with quality, but that era is ending. And it's ending because European governments have made manufacturing uncompetitive. High energy costs, as we've discussed, are part of the problem. But it's not just energy. Europe has suffocated industry under a mountain of regulations, taxes, and labor laws that make production expensive and slow. In Germany, it takes years to get permits for new factories. Environmental regulations are so strict that building anything industrial is nearly impossible. Labor laws make it difficult to fire unproductive workers, which discourages hiring. Corporate taxes, while lower than they once were, are still higher than in competitor nations. Meanwhile, the United States, under the Inflation Reduction Act and CHIPS Act, is offering billions in subsidies to lure manufacturers. China continues to subsidize its industries and manipulate its currency to keep exports cheap. And Europe? Europe offers lectures about sustainability and compliance forms. The result is an exodus. European companies are relocating, not to other European countries, but out of Europe entirely. Volkswagen is building electric vehicle plants in the United States. Northvolt, a Swedish battery manufacturer once hailed as Europe's answer to Asian dominance, is struggling and looking to America for support. Pharmaceutical companies are moving production to the US and Asia. Even luxury brands are shifting manufacturing to lower-cost countries. This isn't a blip. This is a structural shift. Europe is losing the industries that made it wealthy. And once those factories are gone, they're not coming back. Because rebuilding manufacturing capacity takes decades and requires an environment that rewards investment. Europe is doing the opposite. It's punishing investment with bureaucracy, taxes, and uncertainty. The manufacturing wound is a slow bleed. But it's fatal. Because without industry, Europe has no engine for growth. It becomes a museum. Beautiful to visit, but economically irrelevant. Wound number 4, the debt trap. Europe's fourth wound is debt, mountains of it. Unsustainable, unpayable, politically toxic debt. Italy's national debt exceeds 140% of GDP. Greece, despite a decade of bailouts and austerity, still owes over 170% of GDP. France is approaching 112%. Spain, Portugal, and Belgium all carry debt loads that would have been considered catastrophic a generation ago. And these numbers are rising. Why? Because European governments spend far more than they collect in taxes. They fund generous welfare states, public pensions, healthcare systems, and bloated bureaucracies. And when revenues fall short, they borrow. For years, this worked. Interest rates were low. The European Central Bank, following the Federal Reserve's playbook, kept borrowing cheap. Governments issued bonds and investors bought them, confident that the ECB would always intervene to prevent defaults. But that era is ending. Inflation has returned, and central banks, including the ECB, have been forced to raise interest rates. Suddenly, borrowing is expensive again. Countries like Italy, which must roll over billions in debt every year, are facing a crisis. Italy's interest payments alone now consume over 4% of GDP. That's money that can't be spent on infrastructure, education, or anything productive. It's just servicing old debt. And as rates rise, the burden grows. Greece already went through this nightmare. In 2010, Greece's debt became unpayable. Bond markets panicked. Yields spiked. The country was locked out of borrowing. The European Union and IMF stepped in with bailouts, but the price was brutal austerity. Pensions were cut, salaries slashed, taxes raised, unemployment soared above 25%. An entire generation was sacrificed to keep Greece in the Eurozone. And a decade later, Greece still hasn't recovered. Italy is next. The Italian economy hasn't grown in 20 years. Its debt keeps rising, and its politics are chaotic. If Italy's bond market loses confidence, the ECB will face an impossible choice. Bail out Italy, which would require trillions and destroy the euro's credibility. Or let Italy default, which would trigger a financial crisis that makes 2008 look mild. Either way, Europe loses. The debt trap isn't just a fiscal problem, it's a political and existential one. Because the euro, the single currency that was supposed to unite Europe, has become a straitjacket. Countries like Italy and Greece can't devalue their currency to regain competitiveness. They can't print money to inflate away debt. They're trapped. And the only escape is either perpetual austerity or leaving the Eurozone, which would trigger economic and political chaos. Wound number 5, the currency curse, which brings us to the 5th and final wound, the euro itself. When the euro was created in 1999, it was supposed to be Europe's answer to the dollar, a single currency for a unified market, easier trade, lower transaction costs, greater economic integration. In theory, it made sense. In practice, it's been a disaster. Because a single currency only works if the economies using it are similar. If they have similar productivity, similar wage levels, similar fiscal policies, Europe doesn't. Germany is an export powerhouse with high productivity and disciplined finances. Greece is a tourism-based economy with lower productivity and chronic deficits. Italy is somewhere in between, stagnant and indebted. Spain relies heavily on real estate and tourism. These economies have nothing in common. And forcing them to share a currency has created permanent imbalances. In the past, if Greece or Italy faced a recession, they could devalue their currency. A cheaper drachma or lira would make their exports more competitive and boost growth. But now they can't. They're stuck with the euro, which is too strong for their economies and too weak for Germany's. The result? Germany runs massive trade surpluses. Southern Europe runs deficits. And the imbalances grow. Germany saves. Southern Europe borrows. And the gap widens every year. The euro has turned Europe into a continent of winners and losers. And the losers can't escape. They're trapped in a monetary union that doesn't fit them, governed by rules written in Brussels that prioritize German interests. The European Central Bank sets policy for the entire Eurozone. But what's good for Germany often destroys Greece or Italy. When the ECB raises rates to fight inflation, it crushes Southern Europe's already weak economies. When it lowers rates, it fuels asset bubbles in stronger economies. There's no right answer because the Eurozone is fundamentally broken. It's a currency union without a fiscal union. A monetary policy without a political union. And history shows that such arrangements always fail. The Latin Monetary Union, a 19th century attempt to create a shared currency in Europe, collapsed. The gold standard, which forced countries into fixed exchange rates, broke during the Great Depression. And the euro, for all its idealism, is heading toward the same fate. Because economics doesn't care about political dreams, and Europe is learning that the hard way. So here's the brutal truth. Europe is dying economically, not from war, not from conquest, but from self-inflicted wounds. It destroyed its energy security for ideology. It ignored its demographic collapse. It suffocated its industries with regulation. It drowned itself in unpayable debt. And it locked itself into a currency system that doesn't work. Each wound alone would be serious. Together, they're fatal. And the worst part? European leaders know this. They see the problems. They read the reports. They attend the summits. But they do nothing. Because fixing these wounds would require painful choices. Admitting that green energy can't replace fossil fuels without nuclear, reforming welfare states that voters depend on, cutting regulations that bureaucrats love, restructuring debt that markets fear, and reconsidering the euro, which is the sacred cow of European integration. So instead, they pretend. They issue statements. They create commissions. They blame others, Russia, China, the United States, capitalism, populism, anyone but themselves. And while they pretend, the European economy bleeds out. History is full of civilizations that chose decline. Rome didn't fall because of barbarians. It fell because it debased its currency, overextended its military, and lost the economic vitality that made it strong. The Ottoman Empire didn't collapse because of external enemies. It collapsed because it failed to modernize while Europe industrialized. The Soviet Union didn't lose the Cold War on the battlefield. It lost because its economic system couldn't compete. And Europe, for all its history and culture, is making the same mistakes. It's choosing ideology over reality, comfort over competitiveness, bureaucracy over growth, and the result is predictable. Decline, stagnation, irrelevance. The 5 wounds are bleeding Europe to death. And unless something changes, the Europe that emerges from this crisis will be unrecognizable, poorer, weaker, dependent, a shadow of what it once was. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it will crush you all the same. Europe is learning that lesson right now, and the rest of the world should be paying attention. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.